Sports presents Benning Bites with Damon Benning. Benning Bites with Damon Benning.
Welcome to another episode of me having my volume turned up. Actually, just kidding. Welcome to another episode of Benning Bites, and we're still echoing. So, Shane, let's go ahead and start that over.
You still have echo?
No, I don't anymore because I finally turned it down.
Okay, we can start it over.
Welcome to another episode of...
Well, I'll just start the whole thing over.
Hurrdat Sports presents Benning Bites with Damon Benning. Benning Bites with Damon Benning.
I appreciate you, fine.
I didn't have the mic on. Good morning, Damon. I'll do it right now. Hold on. We'll start over. For sure this time, I promise.
Hurrdat Sports presents Benning Bites with Damon Benning. Benning Bites with Damon Benning.
Another fantastic episode of Benning Bites. Appreciate you being a part of what we do. Apple, Google, Spotify. You know the drill. Google it. And you can be a part of this fantastic opportunity. We're on ESPN 590 from 7 to 10, KFOR from 9 to 10. And listen, we appreciate, without you, there is no us. My man, Uncle Ruru. He's got a lot of nicknames, right? I don't know. Let's just go with Ruru for short. Give him a follow. Andrew Rogers CC. Now that everybody is anti-blue checkmark around this place on Twitter, and give Coffee and Cream a listen. Hopefully you're bumping around. You're on YouTube TV. A couple of fantastic interviews yesterday. Brian Christopherson was great. His last answer, which I think was fantastic, got cut off a little bit, but we'll try to get that up on the replay page. Great show coming up here in a minute. But we were talking, and I think this is kind of interesting because we're talking about local recruiting and the momentum and this, that, and the other, and all these guys with double-digit Power 5 offers, and Minnesota and Colorado and Notre Dame and K-State and all these schools in just 2 days ago in Omaha. And I asked BC the question because I just feel like we're craving a winner, and we're kind of all in on the Matt Rule coach staff, the buzz. And a couple of local guys having early impacts, right? More than a couple. Gatula, young in the 2 deep. Maverick Noonan, young in the 2 deep. People think Malachi Coleman could be a young guy in the 2 deep. Xavier Betts in the 2 deep. John Bullock, young in the 2 deep. Guys like that where there's a lot of buzz and we're ready to gravitate and hop on towards a winner. So I just ask, with some of the aforementioned schools, Minnesota, Colorado, those are the first 2 teams on the schedule. Do you guys feel comfortable, kind of riding the early wave, not predicting 6, 7, or 5, or 4, or 9 wins, or whatever the models say? Just what happens simply if Nebraska starts 2-0. And I get it. You're protecting your hearts. You don't want to lay it on the line. You've had your fingers whacked a couple of times before. You don't want to stick them out there again. But Minnesota, I've talked about it, had a pretty tumultuous offseason. A lot of good players have left the program. A couple guys have graduated. You've swapped out your staff. You now have co-coordinators. I get it. Rossi, Dan Collins, PJ Fleck. A lot of those guys are studs. Good coaches. They do a heck of a job recruiting. But how do you feel with Galifianakis and what you saw in the spring game and their turnover in Colorado with having to rebuild the roster on the fly, and Coach Sanders, at least on the surface, I'm not saying this to be a fact, but at least on the surface saying, okay, year one may be a little hectic, I'm building for the long haul. What kind of momentum could be built off just a 2-0 start? And I get it. You guys are Googling. Actually, probably 88% of you know off the top of your head when the last time Nebraska started 2-0. It's like, DB, don't do it to me. But hear my heart. I'm not predicting 2-0. I'm saying if you let yourself go, given what all three teams, Minnesota, Colorado, Nebraska, have gone through in the offseason, the acquisitions, player departures, whatever. What's the sentiment if Nebraska goes 2-0? Because those games are early. They'll have played 2 games before September 2nd, because I think they're the 31st and the 9th. Don't quote me on that. I'm close. You'd think if I was on the broadcast, I would know, but I don't. I just kind of play it by ear. It just goes that way. I mean, listen, it's me. If you've ever listened to the show with me and Andrew, you know, it's whatever, and we just go with the flow. But what kind of momentum could be built off of recruiting? Again, the Bullocks, the Noonans, the Gatulas, the Malachi Colemans, the young guys having a chance to play early. How about Coach Rule not spending an inordinate amount of time bringing guys in from the transfer portal, rewarding guys locally with scholarships like Borkature and Bullocks? Is players talk, recruits talk. It is a very small circle with impact guys locally. Does that change the way you feel about the Pyframs who said, yes, Nebraska, you're going to get an official? The Isaiah McMorrises, yes, you're going to get an official. The Carter Nelsons, who have been in Nebraska 15,000 times, you know full well about Caleb um, in terms of the ins and outs of Nebraska. Um, JT Brands, Jackson Williams, just guys, uh, Pierce Mooberry, 2025, Tyson Terry, guys like that have been impacted by what's going on with Minnesota. All these schools regionally in the 500-mile radius, if local guys get off to a really good start, does that impact things? How quick would we ride the momentum? And would we move away from, well, all that matters is we remember what you do in November? Uh, could it be about September for the fan base in the state of Nebraska? Could it really be about September? And how much momentum can you garner early before that signing period, the early signing period on a local level? I'm fascinated. I mean, obviously, I'm emotionally invested on a multitude of levels, right? But just locally, right? You're vying for an Eric Ingerson, and Pittsburgh is already offered, and he's committed, and Nebraska comes in after. Is it true that the state school has to go first for you to make up ground? I don't know. We'll see. Does winning are recruits back to having winning being important as opposed to just being recruited? You people know me. I say it all the time. I allude to it. Recruit the folks that enjoy the grind of playing and love the game more than they love to be recruited. Will the results start to matter again if Nebraska wins? Can it not be about the facilities? Can it not be about the buzz? Can it not be about anything other than, you know what? I'm all in because I love the other stuff with the staff, the camaraderie, the commitment continuum, the preaching of the family. You didn't go out and hammer the portal. You kept your business in house with rewarding guys on your current roster. Yep, I want to be all in. Can we dial in on that to build some momentum? I don't know, but all bets are off. And I'm just talking. I'm not even asking you to like extrapolate. I'm not saying predict 5 wins or 7 wins. Just compartmentalize just for a second. Can you win 2 games on the road? Minnesota 7-3 against Nebraska since they've been in the Big Ten. Colorado has ripped your heart out the last 2 times you played them, once in Lincoln, once in Boulder. The last time in Boulder, some will say ruined your season going forward when Coach Mel Tucker said, "We felt our toughness and conditioning would win out, and it did. It's good to be rewarded for our offseason." And it was like devastated. Can we move past that? And what does it mean for the program? Tell you what, you mess around and get out of the gates with a good start, could get dangerous. How dangerous? I don't want to speculate, excuse me. Not putting my neck on the line. I only have one. I kind of like it. And it keeps this big medulla oblongata on balance, so I can't jeopardize it. It's another episode of Benning Bites.